She is a light on this planet. She's a light in our movement. And we're so, so blessed to have her. I know many of you who come here have already read her bio, so I'm not going to go into the details of her bio, just to say that she has served this planet in so many capacities, in the corporate world, in our larger spiritual community, the centers for spiritual living, in many capacities. And so we are abundantly blessed to have her today. So let's give her a huge round. In fact, let's give her a standing ovation.
Thank you. I haven't done anything yet, you guys. I haven't done anything yet. Well, thank you for having me back. I was here in July while Reverend Kathleen was away. I believe you were out west, where I'm from. And so thank you for having me back again. So the theme for this month is spiritual mind treatment, which of course is Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science, Mind, and Spirit. It's his words for affirmative prayer. And the idea behind affirmative prayer is that we are not separate from our good. We're not separate from God. We are not, as some religions teach, we're not worms of the dust begging for our good. We are the living embodiment of that divine life. And so when we speak our word, we are, as God, we bring into manifestation as God does. We are creators of our reality. And therefore, that is what spiritual mind treatment is. We don't treat y'all. We treat our own mind to see the good. And so the title for today is Treatment Begins with a Thought. So I've witnessed a lot of spiritual mind treatments. I've worked for and with and in this movement for over a decade. I was the publisher of a little magazine called Science of Mind for 7 years. I've been around the block. And I hear us throw around the words omni. Omni,
Presence.
Omni, potent, omniscient, a lot. And those are all true. God is all of those things. But I find it sometimes hard for my own thought process to relate to those things. Those are very big things. And sometimes I can't relate. And all that does for me personally is increase my sense of separation that God's this big thing and I'm this little thing. So I invite us today to have a new thought. God is good. God is good. That's it. God is good. Now, this idea comes from a woman named Emma Curtis Hopkins. Well, it comes from Buddha, Jesus, a lot of people, but in the New Thought movement, Emma Curtis Hopkins is the one who articulated this. God is good. There is good for me and I ought to have it. Now, Emma Curtis Hopkins was the teacher of Ernest Holmes, and so she's a very bedrock to Centers for Spiritual Living in our philosophy here. She just talked about the good. The good. When we can feel into the good, then we are in alignment with our greater life, with God. So I want to, I love this because God is always trying to give us our good. I want to let you all know that we all have the exact same life purpose. How many of you have ever wandered in the wilderness wondering what your purpose in life is? Anybody, or is it just me? Okay, yeah. Well, I'm here to tell you, we all have the exact same purpose. Now, that's kind of unusual, right? I'm sure that we all are here for different things in our unit. We have the same purpose, each one of us, to express and experience good. Now, how I experience good and how Reverend Kathleen experienced good are totally different things, and that's where our individuality comes. But we are here to express and experience good, so if it feels good to you, it is good. It is your good. So my husband is a master gardener. So his good is gardening. We just bought 5 acres in Pennsylvania, which he lives in Colorado still. So, so his good is not fully being expressed or experienced right now because I got to tell you, I would rather have a root canal than garden. That is not my good. I have a different good. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's when we are feeling good, when we are in the flow. You guys have all had the experience of doing something you love and you lose track of time, and you come away and you're so optimistic and you believe that everything's possible, and you know that you can live the life you want, and all the money's going to be there, and the relationship's going to be there, and every problem you have goes away. Anybody ever felt that?
Sure.
Okay, good. Do it all the time. Because that's the good. So it all starts with a thought, though. So our good is for all of us. But some of us might have had thoughts creep into our experience that tell us we can't do that. That would be irresponsible. That would be, everybody wants to do that. I remember I told my mother once I wanted to be a writer, and she said, what makes you think you can be a writer? Everybody wants to be a writer and live that life. And I remember when I was in practitioner training, I actually said that. At the end of prac training, we had to do a project, and I passed around my doctoral dissertation, which just had become a book. And I passed it around, and I said the words out loud, someday I'd like to become a writer. And one of my classmates goes, I think you are. But I still had this belief that that wasn't my good. I couldn't have my good. I'm separate from my good. But I wasn't. I had gone all the way down the path of writing a book and getting it published, and I still was saying, I hope someday I can be a writer. I want to let you know we do this every day. We all do this. This is why I said to Marianne, what if the what ifs are here right now? Ernest Holmes tells us that we have to deny anything unlike our good in our experience. It's interesting because when you read the Science Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes talks a lot about denials. And Emma Curtis Hopkins is her second step. Emma has 12, Ernest has 5. But your first step is to know you're good, to recognize that you are God, you are one with God. And then Ernest Holmes has this section where he talks about denials. Now, we don't talk about that much anymore, and I think it's because in the last 40 years, denial has become a word in kind of the recovery movement to mean delusional. She is denial. And so it's not a good, it hasn't been a good thing. But Ernest Holmes uses it as a good thing. When we say denial, we deny that there is anything unlike our good operating in our experience. We don't buy into it. One of my favorite examples of this is there's a teacher named Dr. Joe Dispenza. Some of you may have heard of him. He's written many books. My favorite is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and I've recently become a devotee of his. He explains the biochemistry of our belief. We have beliefs that we get when we're little. When we're born, we know that we are here to express and experience our good. And then things happen. Maybe we grew up in a less than ideal situation. Maybe we had one of those very rare dysfunctional families. Maybe we were subjected to abuse or neglect or something like that. Whatever it was, we learned to fear our surroundings. Let's just take fear as the best example. We learned to fear. Well, fear has a biochemical component. So when I'm afraid, I'm just going to use the two I can say and know best. 2 hormones are released in my body, adrenaline and cortisol. Well, what happens as I grow up is that my cells actually change so that I only have receptor sites in my cells for the hormones of adrenaline and cortisol. Now, this is also what happens when you get addicted to heroin or alcohol or tobacco. Your cells change so that they only have receptor sites for that addictive substance. Well, if I'm addicted to adrenaline and cortisol, and I live my life in fear, and then one day I show up here at CSL Delaware and someone tells me I don't have to fear. Everything I want is already given. I'm a beloved of God. I'm a divine emanation. I really want to believe that. And so I go trotting out into my life thinking this is true, but guess what? My cells, after a little while, go, hey, I need my fix. Where's my adrenaline and cortisol? And we subconsciously create something in our life that will give us the biological fix we need. Has anybody experienced that where you say, I want this, and it just, you think it's great, and then boom, you get hit upside the head by something? Here's the thing where denials come in. We have to deny the thoughts that create the fear. We have to deny the thoughts that keep us small. We have to deny the belief that we don't deserve it. We have to deny the belief that we aren't worthy. We have to deny the belief that not everyone gets there. Good, oh, sure, that's a nice dream to have, but, who are you to be brilliant? We have to deny that. We have to catch ourselves. We have to catch ourselves, sneak up on ourselves, and go, that's not true. We have to find when it's happening. Which leads me to my third point. So the first thing is you have to know that there's good for you and you ought to have it. The second thing is you have to deny anything like it. And my last point is you got to practice. You got to practice. This isn't like a college degree where you learn all this stuff and you read the Science of Mind textbook and you read Marianne Williamson, you read Wayne Dyer, you read Joe Dispenza, and you read everyone else, and then all of a sudden you know it and you're done. You're good. Okay, good. I'm done. You have to practice. You have to practice. You have to be able to catch it. My favorite analogy on this is playing an instrument. How many people play either a sport or an instrument? Okay. So for those of you who do, you've had this experience, and for those of you that don't, you're going to have to extrapolate out a little bit. I play the piano myself. So what if I just sat down and learned how to read music out of a book? So I could learn what all those stanzas mean, the treble clef and the bass clef. I could know which notes are what. I could learn the history of it. I could learn all about Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and then Chopin and how the movements changed. I could look at the music and understand how harmonies work and how you're in different keys. I can understand how a piano is built and how it's tuned and which string is which. I can do all of those things. But if I never actually sit down and play, someone gives me all of that and says, okay, go play this concerto, what do you think would happen?
Not much.
Thank you very much. Same with a sport. You can learn all the rules of soccer that you want. You can study every book about soccer. You can do anything you want with soccer. This would be me. Somebody puts you on a field and you go, oh, that's the goal. That's the left forward. These people are my team or whatever. You could understand what's happening, but you couldn't do it. The same is true with spiritual mind treatment. I know that many people in this room have read a whole bunch of ink about spiritual mind treatment. I bet if I asked, how many of you know the 5 steps of treatment? How many of you know? Yay, look at that. Look at all y'all. You guys are so good. You know the 5 steps of treatment. I bet if I told you that you're supposed to believe that you are God, that the minute you speak your word, it is done, and all you have to do is listen for the answer, you already knew that, right? Right. So my work here is done. You all are living exactly what you want, and there's nothing more to do here, right? We have to practice. We have to practice every day. There is nothing outside of ourselves giving us what we want. God works through us. I didn't understand that for a very long time, and then I heard a joke that kind of brought home. Guy's on his way to a job interview. He's running late, and big job interview. He's been out of work for a really long time. He really needs this job. He's running late. He's driving his car. And he's looking for a parking place. He's driving around. There's no parking place. He's like, please God, oh, please God, just give me a parking place. Please God, if you give me a parking place, I promise I'll do whatever you want. Just give me a parking place. Give me a parking place. And right then, second spot in, somebody backs out. He pulls in. He goes, never mind, God, I got it. We do this. We do this. We want to believe that our good is there, but we don't act as if we do. We want to believe it, but it feels afar off. Emma Curtis Hopkins says in the 6th chapter, she says, I am at peace in the world in which I walk. Near me is the presence of good, and afar off is the presence of good. The near me is the presence of good. We all think it's afar off. I mean, I think everybody can kind of buy. We can intellectually go, yeah, over there's my good. Near me is the presence of good. I'm at peace in the world in which I walk. So we have to absolutely believe that we are one with our good. And then we have to deny anything unlike it. We have to catch ourselves. Catch yourself when you start falling into fear. If you I don't know how many people, drink wine. I might once in a while. But I know when I'm about halfway through my second glass of wine, I get a physical sensation that says, "Oops, stop drinking it now." Right? You can do the same thing with fear. You can catch the physical sensation when that adrenaline and cortisol comes, when doubt comes. You guys know your mouth goes dry, your palms sweat, your heart beats. If you're driving to work thinking about the bills you can't pay, stop it. Because you're just using your thoughts to feed the fear. That's when you deny. I deny the power of this thought over me because I absolutely believe my good is at hand. My good is here now. You can use that denial. And then practice this. Practice this. Practice it. Get up every morning and look at the world in which you walk. And see the good. Train yourself to see the good. I have 3 little dogs at home in Pennsylvania. I try to see the good. Good. I love these little dogs. 2 of them were my husband's before we got married. 1 of them was mine. I kind of inherited the 2, and now, of course, as I said, he lives in Denver, and I got all 3 dogs. So they're a pain in the neck. They really are. They are needy. They are destructive. They are whatever. And when I first moved and I was saddled with these 3 dogs, I would wake up every morning. Well, let me rephrase it. They would wake me up, and I would go, "Oh, I hate these dogs. I hate being here with them. They're such a burden. Why don't I have to? I guess I gotta get up and feed them, and I only got 5 hours of sleep." Who's doing that? The dogs? Now, I see those eager little faces, those cute little fuzzy whiskers at 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, sweet little tails beating on me. I shifted. I looked for the good. I denied that those dogs had any power to ruin my day. And then every morning when I get up, I force myself to look at how much they love me, how loving they are. I force myself to see the good. I could not, but I do. We can do that in every aspect of our lives. When we sit down to pay bills, we can look at the money we do have. If we're in a relationship and our partner, significant other is driving us crazy, we can take a minute and look at all the things we appreciate about them. We have to absolutely change the thought. So, I'm going to invite you guys. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. It all starts with a thought. The first thought you have to embody, there's good for me and I ought to have it. I am pleased with the world in which I walk. Near me is the presence of good and afar off is the good. Know the good. Deny that anything unlike the good has any power over you. Doesn't mean deny that it's happening. Deny that it has any power over you. You can change your thought to see it differently. Always, 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 no matter what. The worst tragedy, the worst event, you can always find the good. And then practice it every moment of every day. I asked this question when I was here last time. It's my favorite question, and I like to end most of my talks like this. If someone accused you of being a spiritual person, would there be enough evidence to prosecute you in a court of law? Let's pray. So, the first thing I do is I recognize that there is the presence of good. And yes, it's omnipotent, and yes, it's omniscient, and yes, it's all-powerful and all-knowing. But first of all, it's good. It's my personal good. It's your personal good. It's that thing that makes our hearts sing. It is individual and unique to each of us, and yet it is universal. Because what is good for one must be good for all. It raises the vibration, and so I just invite each of us as we move into that place of power that we feel good. Let's bring to mind our own good. Is it someone we love? Is it a favorite hobby? Is it a great situation? Really allow your body to feel good. And as we feel that good, we recognize that that is God. That is the power of God. God is not this big, scary thing. God is that peaceful, peaceful feeling of being in our bliss and our joy, having our good. And that good is manifesting through each one of us so that we can bring it to fruition in the world. And so as I recognize that each one of us is a point of good, that each one of us is here with the power to express and experience our good, what I know for each of us is that we leave here today with a new understanding of how the world works. We walk out of here catching ourselves when we think thoughts that keep us separate from our good, denying that that thought has any power, allowing ourselves to flow with that ease and grace of noticing our thoughts, letting them go, and just reframing again into the goodness that is always ours. I know for each person here that the good is assured regardless of whatever condition in the world we may be facing. This is an evolutionary life, and this is an evolutionary journey. And so we are always growing to greater and greater experiences of good. Even when we can't see how that might be in the moment, that's where we trust. And so knowing for each one of us that we leave here today uplifted, inspired, that we go about our task this day and this week with a renewed understanding and a renewed faith, knowing that we show up as that point of good in the world, not only for ourselves, but for everyone we come in contact with. That it is by being in touch with our own personal good that we create a world that works for everyone, because how can it work for someone else until it works for me? And so I just give thanks to know this truth. I give thanks that it is that easy and that difficult. As Ernest Holmes says, it's simple, not always easy. But I give thanks for this simplicity. I give thanks that we can change our mind and change our lives. I give thanks that the thought is the only thing that needs to be transformed and that we can have the tools to do it. And so I just let go. I allow the gratitude to fill up in my heart and wash over me. I know that all is well, and so I can release this word into that alchemy of love and law that comes together and makes this word so even as I speak it. I just now walk forward knowing that it is done. All is well. And let's say together,
yes, and so it is.